There we go. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Killer Author Club, the first episode of 2024. We are so glad you guys are here, and we're so glad that we have Killer Angie Kim here, who's going to be with us talking all about our Good Morning America book club pick, Happiness Falls. We have tons to talk about, so grab your cocktail, your list of questions for Angie, and sit tight. We'll see you on the flip side.
Thought you really loved me, guess I was wrong. Thought you'd never leave me, guess I was dumb. Waited like forever to be your plus one, but I guess you were done.
And we're back. Hi, everybody. I'm Killer Kara Ruda, along with founding members Heather Gudenkopf and Kimberly Bell. And we're so excited to celebrate Angie's new book tonight in the clubhouse. The Killers and I started the Killer Author Club so that readers like you can interact with some of the best suspense and thriller authors in the business. Our winter-spring lineup is fantastic, including Angie, and also Frida McFadden, B.A. Paris, Lisa Gardner, and so many more killer authors that you've got to tune in. Dates, times, and all information can be found on killerauthorclub.com. But tonight, we're here with Killer Angie Kim to talk about killing, of the fictional kind, of course. So make sure to drop your questions in the comments, and we'll try to get through as many of them as we can. And if you're watching this on Facebook or have a Facebook account, check out our public group, Killer Author Club, or if you're a hardcore killer, our private members-only group called the Killer Author Clubhouse, where we pick a winner each episode. Join for your chance to win swag. We also have a YouTube channel, almost up to 500,000, no, really just 500 people, where we'd love for you to join over there too. Okay, for links to everything, watch the comments or check out Killer Author Club website, killerauthorclub.com. So now, without further ado, Kimberly, would you please officially introduce our killer guest?
I would be honored to. Angie Kim moved as a preteen from Seoul, South Korea to the suburbs of Baltimore. After graduating from Interlochen Arts Academy, she studied philosophy at Stanford University and attended Harvard Law School, where she was an editor of the Harvard Law Review. Her debut novel, Miracle Creek, won the Edgar Award and the ITW Thriller Award, was named one of the 100 Best Mysteries and Thrillers of All Time by Time. Happiness Falls, her second novel, was an instant New York Times bestseller and a book club pick for Good Morning America, Barnes & Noble, Bellatrist, and Book of the Month Club, and was named the #1 novel of the year by Oprah Daily and one of the 10 best books of the year by People. She lives in Northern Virginia with her family. All right, Angie, so let's dive into the book. Could you give us like a quick little elevator pitch for Happiness Falls?
Yeah. First of all, thank you so much for having me, guys. I'm so excited to be here. And also, just like a warning that I am coming to you from Northern Virginia, where we are having quite of a storm. So just in case like the power goes out or something, in which case if it does, then I will like quickly grab my phone and be right on. So just warning. But anyway, Happiness Falls is a story about a family in crisis. It opens when the father of a biracial Korean American family goes missing, and the only person who might know what happened is his 14-year-old son Eugene, who has Angelman syndrome, a rare genetic condition, and cannot speak. So in order to figure out what happened to this beloved father and husband, the family really has to come together and try to figure out how to truly connect with each other, and most importantly, connect and communicate with Eugene.
Loved it. And we're going to get a lot more into the story, and we have tons of questions for you in just a minute. But first, let's settle in for the killer cocktail of this episode. Heather?
Oh, yes, and this sounds so good. So it's the kimchi martini inspired by Happiness Falls. So Angie, tell us about the inspiration for this cocktail. Why you
Yeah, absolutely. So the kimchi martini is something that I discovered, I think right after I got a vaccine for COVID. And I really wanted my like normal, martini that I always have at like 5 or 6 o'clock every day. And my mom was like, and I said something to my mom about like how I had just gotten this and I was going to make myself a martini. And she said, but alcohol isn't good for you because it, like immune system, blah, blah, blah. And she said, oh, but you know what you should have instead is kimchi because kimchi is so good for your immune system. You need to boost it right now. And I was like, why don't I combine those two into one? So I made myself my standard vodka martini that I love, but instead of putting in like olives and olive brine, I put in a little bit of the kimchi juice and I put the kimchi radish cubes and some kimchi cucumber onto my little, thing and used it as the garnish for my martini and I loved it. It's delicious and I really wanted to show it off to you guys, but unfortunately because of the road closures and storm and blah blah in Northern Virginia right now, I'm actually not at my house. I'm at a friend's house that I had to go to. So I'm unfortunately have a Prosecco in this glass instead of a kimchi martini, but I am assuring you that it is delicious and I highly recommend it.
It sounds delicious.
Yeah.
It's so like healthy for you. It's really good for you.
A healthy martini. What could be better?
So you like invented this drink.
Well, I don't think so. Like since then, I have like Googled kimchi various things, like kimchi martini, kimchi whatever. And this is like a thing. Like people definitely put kimchi in lots of different drinks. But it is definitely something that I really like. And so I wouldn't go so far to presume to have invented it, but
Yeah.
Well, cheers to that.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, cheers.
Yay.
Congratulations to another amazing read. We love it.
It's amazing. Okay, and speaking of that, Happiness Falls is a New York Times bestseller. It's also a Good Morning America book club pick, Oprah's daily #1 novel of the year, and one of People Magazine's 10 best books of the year. There's so many praises. People said, this riveting missing person thriller is really a meditation on happiness that illuminates the power of language and challenges readers' stereotypes. Love that. The New York Times said, a mystery that tugs at your heart. And then the Atlanta Journal-Constitution says, Angie Kim's powerhouse of a novel offers a probing exploration of the intersection of communication, speech, and intelligence that not only gives voice to the silenced population, but concludes with a fantastic twist. Wow, Angie, congratulations on it. It gives me the chills. Like there's so much praise, I can't even read it all.
Oh, thank you so much. That's so nice of you.
It's well deserved. Okay, but now for the very serious question. We need to know, because we're the Killer Author Club, how do you kill?
Yeah. I have been thinking about this like all day. I was telling these killer ladies beforehand. I was like, I don't know. Okay, but here's the thing. I've been thinking about it and I've only written 2 stories, but a lot of my short stories that I started with beforehand, before I went into novels, also, feature people who have died. I think it's fairly safe to say that I'm kind of obsessed with death and people's guilt around how they may contribute to the death of people that they love. And all the deaths that I can think of in my stories come from my deep fears. So, in Miracle Creek, which is my debut novel, there are people who are killed, especially boys who are killed through a fire in what's supposed to be a medical experiment, that a mother sort of puts her son through because she cares about him and loves him so much and wants him to get better. And it's an experimental treatment that I actually did for one of my children with great success for his ulcerative colitis, hyperbaric oxygen therapy. But while I was doing it, I was like really worried. Like I had these nightmares that like something would happen to this chamber, that we were sealed inside, and that and I would be killed, and that this thing that I was doing for his benefit would ironically end up like harming us. Like I think this is one of the things that a lot of, parents, especially mothers, are fearful of. We do all these things for our children, thinking that we're trying to spare them or trying to like help their lives, but then what if it ends up harming them instead? So like the answer to the question, how do I kill, is I think of like the awful things that happen inside my head during my nightmares as I'm doing things for the people I love, thinking that like I'm going to these extraordinary lengths to like make their lives better. And then there's that tiny voice that goes like, what if it goes wrong? And they end up like horrifically disfigured or dead, or like something like that happening. And then I end up like working that out, by putting it into my fiction, which is probably something I should talk to a therapist about or something.
All should. That's why we're the author club. We all should.
We all do that.
But that's like I think that's what I do. I think that's how I work out my fears and so many of things. And like even in this, there's a scene in Happiness Falls where some of the siblings are kind of like having fights and things. And I remember having my boys, when we were on a family vacation, like somebody said something to the other, teasing them, and the other one didn't take it well because they were like 14 or something. And then and he pushed his brother, like because he was mad. And then he ended up like being pushed into these hedges, and we were like walking along, and we didn't realize that there was like a hill beyond the hedge. And so he ended up like falling, and he didn't end up getting seriously hurt or anything. But I remember like saying to them, guys, it's a good thing that we weren't at the Grand Canyon, and I'm not taking anyone. I'm not taking you guys to the Grand Canyon until you're like 30 and you can control your impulses or something. Like some of those nightmare scenarios, I think that's how I kill my characters. They're all sort of there in my nightmares, and I use them to work out my fears. Don't you guys do that too?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think it's something that a lot of authors do,
Yeah.
especially authors in our genre, because horrible, awful things happen in these books. And I think we're all trying to figure out, trying to figure out, what we would do, how we would handle it, what would happen.
Yeah. And you kind
It's
of
a little safer than real life to do it on paper.
because you have a little control in your book where you have no control in the real world.
You have all the control on paper, right?
Yeah.
That's
I agree. So Angie, I read this interview with you, and it was talking, I think you said you wrote this Happiness Falls was based on a short story that you had written a long time ago.
Yeah. So being a writer is actually my 5th career.
Wow.
And so I started as a lawyer, and then I was a management consultant because I figured out that I hate being a lawyer. And then I was a .com entrepreneur, and then I was a full-time stay-at-home mom. And then finally I discovered writing in my 40s. And I loved creative writing. I was like, where has this been my entire life? And it's funny because I don't know about you guys, but I am not one of these people that started writing when I was 5. Like I never wanted to be a writer. I thought they were weird. I went to Interlochen Arts Academy, which is this sporting school, and they actually have an amazing creative writing department. But I didn't take a single class. I thought writers were so strange. I was an actor, and I was like, why would you want to sit in your room and write when you can like go on stage and act and sing and dance, So when I started writing, one of the first stories that I wrote was actually about this family, the Parkson family, this biracial family with a stay-at-home dad and a Korean immigrant mom. And in this short family, they had gone back to Korea, and their kids, Mia and John, who are fraternal twins, felt guilty about their 5-year-old youngest, brother Eugene, because um, they did something to their mom when she was pregnant with him, and it was just like a little prank. They weren't being, bad or anything, but it was like a prank gone wrong. And so they felt really responsible for Eugene being a non-speaker and not having a voice and having the diagnosis of autism when he was young. And so they really felt like this prank, the site of the prank, which was this graveyard in outside Seoul in Korea, that his voice must be still in the grounds. So the story was called Buried Voice, and they went around with this antique stethoscope looking like literally for their brother's voice in the ground and doing experiments to try to find it and try to reunite the voice with their brother. And so that was one of the first short stories that I wrote, and it was published in a literary magazine, Sycamore Review, and it won a short story contest judged by Charles Baxter, who is one of my idols. And when an idol like loves your story, and he had said in his judge's citation that he loved the voice, Mia's voice, and it was funny and all of that, I think it just like, like when somebody you like really admire praises something that you write, and it just kind of like makes you want to, like repeat that over and over again. So I think that voice, Mia's voice, kind of stuck with me. And so whenever I would write something else, I would sort of think like, is there any role for Mia in this? Is there any role for this family in this? And then in my real life, when my kids were like applying to colleges, for example, I would be thinking to myself, like, I wonder how the twins in the story, Mia and John, like, I wonder if they're applying to colleges. Like, I wonder where they're applying and what kinds of essays they're writing and if they're applying to the same colleges. And so like they became real in my mind, even though obviously I knew they weren't, and they kind of grew up in my mind. And so when this story came along and I learned about real life advances with non-speaking autistics and people with Angelman syndrome and things like that, who were learning to communicate even though they couldn't speak by learning to spell on letterboards, letter by letter, painstakingly. And I heard about that, and then I connected with this community, and I was so touched by them. I now teach creative writing to a bunch of these non-speaking people most of whom are autistic. And I wanted to tell their story. It was so natural to me to sort of go back to this family that I knew so much about and like wonder to myself, like, I wonder if this family tried the same therapy with Eugene, and I wonder what, would have happened. And so a lot of the story is about that.
I love that. And so how long ago did you write that short story? So how long have they been in your head?
So I started writing it 13 years ago, and it was published 10 years ago. Yeah. Like 11 now, 2013. So yeah, I know, right?
So they were in your head when you wrote your first book.
Yes. They were definitely in my head. And in fact, when I wrote my first book, Miracle Creek, I actually had Mia and John, the older siblings. Mia is the narrator in Happiness Falls. I had them. They're not in Miracle Creek, but I actually did an experiment where I had them be the narrators of the Miracle Creek story. So I have those, and they just didn't work. Like she's very sarcastic, and she's very know-it-all, and she's very 20. I mean, she's definitely a 20-year-old kid. And I can say that as the mom of 3 boys, 2 of whom are 20 somethings in college right now, and who are very, like intense and like a lot right now. So she's like that, and it just didn't work with the tone of Miracle Creek. So I ended up telling that story directly from the 7 POV characters who were like most directly involved in the incident. But I've tried to work them into like pretty much everything that I've been writing since then. And I'm so glad that I got that out of my system.
I love that.
And speaking of Mia, I just loved her, but we really got to know her also through her footnotes, which I thought was such a creative, fun way to add to the story. How did you come to include those side thoughts into the story that she?
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much, Heather. So I have kind of ADHD tendencies myself, and Mia is definitely, she's hyperlexic. And she is also, she tells us that she was kind of like the doctors like labeled her as Asperger's when she was younger. So she definitely has those types of tendencies herself. And so she goes off on all tangents. And I had known that about her characteristic for for 13 years, right? And so she makes me curious as a writer and as like a person. And I use the way that I write, I use a method that I call method writing, which is kind of similar to method acting from my theater background, where I really try to inhabit the mindset of the POV character, whoever I'm writing from. So, for Miracle Creek, where I had 7 characters, it was actually like, fun, because every 3 months or so, when I would finish a chapter, I would just like change, to a different persona. But with Mia, I was in her head for like 3 years. So that was a little harder. But what was so interesting about her was that when I was in her head, one of her defining characteristics is that she is interested in everything. She's just very, just intellectually curious. So I ended up going down these sidetracks with so many things. And in my free writing, I would go through all of these things, and then I would do all these Google searches, and I would write more about how they relate to whatever was happening to her that day. And then I would be like, wait a minute, where was I? I don't even remember where I was in the story anymore. And then I was like, well, clearly this is not going to work. And so I took a lot of those things, and then I decided, instead of putting it into a parenthetical or whatever, I just like put it down into the footnotes, thinking that like that way people who are interested can read it, and if you're not interested, you can just like skip right over it. Like, for example, my husband does not like any of this stuff. Like, he does not like these side points. He just wants to get to like the point. He's a lawyer, and and he's kind of like, what is with these footnotes? And so I was like, you know what? I am going to, on page, and this happens on page 2, I'm going to give readers like you, like my husband, whom I love dearly, a way to just bypass all that. If you don't like that, you can just skip it. Really, there's nothing in there that like you need to know. It's really like just more of a character, breaking the fourth wall, like being like, hey, audience members, like readers, let me talk to you. Like, let's go into this a little more and let's get real. And so, and if you don't want that, you don't have to read it, and you can skip it and not miss out on anything. And so I decided to put that in, and I told my editor and my agent, I was like, look, guys, this is something I'm trying. And my editor, he's like, he's very into literary fiction, whatever, and he and my agent both, and so they were like, oh yeah, no, footnotes in fiction they're really nothing, so it's great. Like, if you want to do that, that's fine, especially since we're giving the readers a way out. And in the audiobook, we said, if you don't like these footnotes, you can just kind of zone out while we're doing the footnote. And we'll say no. And then we say like, end the footnote. You can pay attention now,
Yeah, no, I loved it, because I love learning when I read, and I learned a lot, actually. And that's always fun. So
thank you.
Yeah.
It was going to be a fun surprise.
Fun.
Kimberly.
Yeah, I know. We are at time for the giveaway of Happiness
Oh,
Falls. Angie
Cool.
is giving away 5 copies. That's right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 copies of Happiness Falls tonight to 5 lucky US viewers. All you have to do is enter is answer this question about our guest, and we'll choose 5 winners from all the correct answers. Bonus points for joining the Killer Author Clubhouse on Facebook or subscribing to our YouTube channel. And it helps if you shout out where you're from. The question is, what country did Angie and her family move from when she was a preteen?
Ooh.
And if you don't remember, you can go back and replay the video, but wait, because we've got lots more coming up.
Right, that's right. And the Killers, we love independent booksellers and we want to support them any way that we can. So that's why we've partnered with bookshop.org, and we have our very own Killer Author Club store on their website where you can find all our books and all our guest books, past, present, and future. So make sure you check that out. We also have some fun listicles there too. So make sure you take some time and run on over there. We'll be dropping that link in the comments. But in the meantime, speaking of indies, we have a very special indie to share from Angie, and it is called Scrawl
Aw.
in Reston, Virginia. So, Angie, tell us why Scrawl is so important to you.
Yeah. So, I mean, there are so many indie bookstores in the DC area that I love and that I moderate, like, events for a lot. There's Politics and Prose, there's East City, there's Loyalty, there's Bard's Alley in Northern Virginia. But I chose Scrawl for you guys to highlight because Scrawl is a tiny indie bookstore in Reston, Virginia, and they're the closest indie store to me. And also, something I love about them is they deliver to my neighborhood and to all of the Northern Virginia areas around them. So you
Awesome.
can, I know it's so cute. They have this like cute little, I think it's like an electric car that they drive around. And so like you can, yeah, so don't you love that? So you can just like, or you can order from them and then they'll just deliver to you. Like, the next time they're in the neighborhood, sometime in the next like couple of days. And I remember during COVID, they brought my paperback release was during COVID. It was in April of 2020 for Miracle Creek. And so they just brought books to me, to my driveway, and masked and all that, and and then they like texted me, and then I came out and I signed and personalized books for them, for their customers, for my paperback. And then they like drove it back, and I remember seeing that, and it was just so cute, and I love them. So even tonight, I was at this book club earlier tonight, which is the book club host is where I am actually. Her office is where I am right now, and so I love supporting them, and I love supporting them to the point where like they gave me their iPad with their Square. And I brought it to the book club for people who wanted to buy extra copies, as gifts and things like that, for me to personalize and things. And so I'm acting as their guest bookseller tonight.
Oh,
So
that's
I feel
fun.
I feel like this is so great in so many ways. And also for authors out there who are listening to this, I think this is an awesome thing. I haven't really done this, but to actually bring extra copies of your books for people to buy, like and to coordinating with a local bookseller to do that, because that helps them, that helps you, it makes everybody feel good. It's just a wonderful thing all around.
Love it.
I love that idea.
Like great indie, and hopefully we can get to the Virginia area and visit.
Yes.
Yeah, that would be great.
All right. So our next segment, does it have to be? Okay, wait. Where I go? There we go.
Woo!
Okay. So we cannot have everybody who would like to be on the show on, unfortunately, but we would like to celebrate 2 exciting releases that are out right now. Death Under a Little Sky by Stieg Abel is out today, and this widely praised debut crime thriller, a high-flying detective leaves London for a fresh start in the countryside, only to find himself on familiar ground hunting for a dangerous killer. Lee Child said it was tense but patient, fast but thoughtful, twisty but substantial. That's fun. Okay, I like that. Also, we have Deep Freeze by Michael Grumley out today, and Deep Freeze, we have 2 copies to give away, which is exciting. So if you'd like to read Deep Freeze, please put a comment in the comments. Deep Freeze is a lone traveler and Army vet, John Rife, plunges to his icy death in a bus accident, but John is returned to life in a medical lab surrounded by scientists who are surprised that the technology worked and wary of telling him that he's been frozen for 20 years. Burp. Okay. Anyway, that's Deep Freeze. And like I said, we have 2 copies of that for you guys. So drop a comment if you'd like to read it.
Sounds great. And as you guys know, membership has its privileges. Every episode, we choose a name from the Killer Author Clubhouse hat. That's our private group. To win a piece of swag, we've got t-shirts, mugs, candles, totes, hats, you name it, we got it. All of which can be found at killerauthorclub.com. And tonight's winner is Mickey Munoz. Please send one of the killers your address, and we will send some killer swag your way.
All right. And we have reached that point in the show where we have to tell you, Angie, that you have survived the Killer Author Club.
Yay! Woo! Yay!
Appreciation.
I love this so much. This is so much.
We would like to bestow upon you this lovely badge that you can, we'll send it to you too, where you can print it out and put it on your wall with all your other literary awards. With those. But thank you so much for being here. Yeah, it's been so much fun. So congratulations on surviving.
Oh, thank you. I'm just actually so happy that we survived this whole storm without the electricity going out and the Wi-Fi cutting out. So I'm calling this a win in so many different ways. You have no idea.
We completely agree. We were wondering what we were going to do had you not been able to log on.
I know.
You saved us too, so we survived because of you. We like that.
Okay. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Awesome.
That does it for tonight's episode. Thanks to everyone for tuning in, and thank you again, Angie, for being here. We will see you guys right back here on January 23rd with the one and only Frida McFadden. She'll be joining us here in the Killer Author Club at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 p.m. Pacific to talk about her new book, The Teacher. So don't miss it. For times, full schedule, and past episodes, recipes, merch, all the good stuff, go to killerauthorclub.com. And happy 2024, and we'll see you next time.
Aww. Bye.
I guess I'm a killer through our loving.